Support the Amigos podcast and keep the Amiga goodness flowing for just $1 a month. Visit our page at patreon.com/AmigosPodcast.
Amiga, the first personal computer that gives you a creative edge.
Hi everybody, welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And this morning, it's Amigos in the morning. We are going to talk about two console games that are also Amiga games. We're going to talk about Aladdin and Micro Machines.
Can you sing the theme from Aladdin?
Which one? A whole new world. We'll talk. Oh man, we actually did a pretty good job.
Getting up there, yeah.
So before we get into the Disney small car combo,
it's an odd pairing. It is.
I want to tell you about something that we're going to start going forward until Christmas time, or until New Year's, really.
All right.
I would like anybody listening to, if you have a favorite moment from the Amigos, all through 2018, please send me an email at john@amigospodcast.com, or you can comment right here on the YouTube video. Let me know your favorite moments, and we are going to compile sort of a clip show to air towards the end of the year that will contain all of everybody's favorite moments from Amigos in 2018.
You know what my favorite moment was? Remember when I finally had enough of you? I pulled your sweater down around your arms and pounded you in the ground like a tent stake.
It was just like a hockey fight, really. You did you pulled it over the top, as they say.
Yeah. You learned a thing or two that day, my friend.
I did. So feel free to submit any ideas you have for Best of 2018. Aaron?
Yeah.
It's pulling into the station. It's time for the Gamble Train.
Yes. Oh, there it is. The Gamble Train is on a short track this week.
Oh boy!
Since we're coming out, but there's some good stuff this week. So, this I found. I just browsing at random. I was just browsing at random on YouTube, and I come across this video here, and it's why in God's name was there never a finished release for Raiden? Which is mostly done, the port of Raiden for the Amiga.
Now, this is not Raiden from Mortal Kombat.
No, this is R-A-I... Well, actually, I think it's spelled the same way, R-A-I-D-E-N. This is the popular shoot-'em-up boat. And I'm sure you've played this one. It's known for having the streams that come out, like they're like energy lasers, and you upgrade your weaponry. I was a big fan of this in the back in the day.
This was an arcade port, right?
That's correct. Yeah. And so, and there it is. We're showing it now on the live stream or on the video if you can see it. It looks. I mean, obviously this is a little slower than you would have gotten in the arcade, but it looks pretty good. And it was a fun game, and apparently it was mostly completed.
And is there a response? Did they find out why it was never completed?
To be honest with you, I didn't catch that in the video.
Oh, okay.
I didn't watch the whole thing, so you can go find out. This one just popped up and I threw it up. So, bleh. So moving along, our good pal the Duncan Styles, has posted a little compilation of Amiga chip tunes that he found. Hey, can't go wrong with the old chip tunes.
Absolutely.
Lovely. And there it is, your patented
demo
pirate screen of doom. So thank you to the Dunk. We're going to skip that one. Now here, again, the Dunk, he's at it again. Someone has put up a demo, an AGA 64K demo, and he has linked that up. Now, interesting. Give that one a shot, Bo. Let's have a look at that.
Okay.
64K. So, and I mean, of course, this is AGA too. I don't think I've seen a ton of AGA demos. And so, yeah, look good. Hey, there's the Gamble Train right there.
There it is.
So, if you're a demo guy, Styles has set you up. There you go. So, let's talk about probably the big news of the week. The angry video game nerd. You a fan of the show, Boatster? I'm guessing.
We talked about this a little bit on Discord.
Yeah.
I will say that I've seen a lot of his material because back in the day, 10 years ago when he started doing this, there weren't a whole lot of people doing regular video game related content. You know, video was a hard thing to do. It was much harder to do 10 years ago because YouTube wasn't as much of a presence as it is now. And they just OBS didn't exist. So Angry Video Game Nerd got out there. He was in front of the pack. And in the beginning, I actually thought that his stuff was not quite as vile as it's become now. He's really taken the shtick all the way to the end in terms of the profanity, in terms of the scatological references. So, you know, I have what I call a mixed respect for him because he did set the stage for many shows in the future, but he's not my favorite personality.
I've probably seen, I'm kind of like you, when there was not as much to watch, I've seen all of his shows. I've seen every last one. I even watched some of his movie. And I actually love his Atari game, the Angry Video Game Nerd, just like a Punch-Out clone. It's a lot of fun, actually. He's always been pretty vile, to be honest with you. But I think this is nothing against Rolf. I mean, he seems like a pretty good guy. But I think in the last few years, you of course haven't seen as many. And much like a lot of things, when it becomes more popular. And you could put more money into it. More people are paying attention to it. It sort of waters down.
And he's got a whole network. He's got Pat the NES Punk and all these guys, and they're all under the same umbrella.
But he's another one. Don't even get me started on him. He's in the hot seat right now due to what he said about the Diablo phone game that came out. So if you follow that drama, now Pat's in the people just look for a new target week after week. I dread the week where I'm in line, but anyways. All that said, the nerd has done a show this week on the Amiga CD32, which I'm so surprised it took him this long. Low-hanging fruit. This is the same guy that has skewered such luminary systems as the Jaguar CD, the poor Sega, or the Sega Genesis 32X, and that sort of thing. So he goes to work on this. You watched this, didn't you, buddy?
Oh, yeah.
What'd you think?
You know, I don't hate to say it. I mean, it's just the truth. He's right on most counts. The CD32 was sold for an incredibly large price, and the games, by and large, did not deliver on the amount that you paid for the system. That said, I think if you are a fan of the platform, there are some bright spots. The nerd is not going to focus on the bright spots because his name is the Angry Video Game Nerd.
Yeah.
You know, you mentioned possibly doing a rebuttal video. Maybe we could take a look at some of those bright spots in a future video and sort of do a silver lining comparison.
Well, I mean, you're right. And a lot of what you said, I agree with it. And of course, he didn't pick the finest titles that were available. He picked a multitude of duddery. That much said, he did say some things that were obviously incorrect, including the fact that these were not. He acted like these systems were not durable or reliable, which I disagree with. He also said that this is what killed Commodore, that's a gross inaccuracy. They were dying. They were on the death's door before this thing came around.
It didn't help.
Well, they didn't make the money they wanted, but
they were also prevented from selling the system, which is a hard thing to do when you're in business to sell systems.
Still, this did not. They were going to die unless this was a massive hit. This was a Hail Mary.
Yeah, I disagree with the people that disagree with him on that part.
Yeah, well, listen. They were in deep trouble.
Yeah,
before this was out.
Right.
Now, I think if you want what killed Commodore, just look at the guys that ran it.
If this would have been a success, Commodore would have continued on. If this was not a success, Commodore died.
I think this couldn't have been a success. That's my contention.
Okay.
And but look at what they did. You know, they were ill prepared. But anyway, he goes through and plays a bunch of the games, and of course kills them, and rightly so, because God knows you deserve a good beating on some of this stuff. He also mocks the controller, which I like. I've said this time and time again. I must be the only guy.
I think you are.
It's a good controller. It's not that bad.
Well, it's not that bad. It's not really.
No, I mean, I use it for all my games on the Amiga now.
Sure. I mean, compared to a joystick with one button, it's a better option.
That's not what I mean, Bo. I'm not going to go down. What did you put on a pocket protector? So, anyway, if you're into that sort of guy, when you looked at it, I thought to myself, God, I bet he's got one on. I should have looked. Anyway, if you like the Angry Video Game Nerd, or you want to see the Amiga just get beat down, and eventually thrown in the dumpster, I might add, which I was appalled. You notice he gently set the Amiga CD32 in a lovely pile of not garbage,
Right.
because that thing ain't going in the dumpster.
No. It's a high-dollar system.
It was big news. So let's talk about our good and dear friend, the Dreamcatcher. Now, Dreamcatcher had a couple articles up this week. You've got one on here. Again, that's another one. I don't know where he finds this stuff. This is a game called The Fat Man. Not Tongue of the Fat Man, Fat Man. Have you ever heard of this one?
So this is, I read this article.
Yeah.
This is a Banana Man clone. Well, it's not really a clone because there was never a Banana Man game.
Yeah,
but so,
I was going to say it's a clone. I've never heard of Banana Man.
So Banana Man was a popular British animated show back in the day. And so instead of making a Banana Man game, I guess they made this game called Fat Man it shared striking resemblance with Banana Man. So Dreamcatcher puts it through its, I don't know how to finish that phrase. What do you put it through? Put it through its...
Paces?
Paces, yeah. I wanted to say put it through its punches, but that's a different metaphor.
I don't know what that means.
I don't either. That's why I didn't say it. So anyway, check out this article by DK.
I like that picture. Eat or die. It's a valid point.
It's true.
He also had another article, and he also included the transcript, which I've posted. He talks about the various gaming adaptations or adaptations, if you will, of Red Heat. Now, I'm not going to lie. I have never watched all of Red Heat. I've watched some of Red Heat.
Is Red Heat a game? Is it a movie? Is it an action flick like Die Hard or something?
It's Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I believe Jim Belushi is his buddy in this one.
So it's like a kind of like Bad Boys.
Well, no. Arnie is a commie in this. He's a Russian, old school.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. And he come to America, and I believe he's looking for a Russian villain. That's like I said, I've only seen some of it, and it's been years and years because it just didn't appeal to me. Not a big Jim Belushi fan, if you want the truth. And so in this game, you play as Arnie. You're whooping that butt.
Boy, look at those muscular men.
Yeah. Well, in that era, everyone, I don't know if you remember this, but everyone, including myself, were all ripped.
Oh, okay.
With an 8-pack.
See, I wasn't around back then.
And then the 90s came, and oh, man.
Everybody just kind of let go.
Well, food got better. That was part of it, you know. But
it seems like everybody in this game is wearing a loincloth.
That's right. We all wore those.
Okay.
It
was a different time.
Listen, when you're look at that guy. What is going on at this level?
Yeah, I don't know. I may need to blur some of this out.
Apparently, this took place at the Arnold Classic, this particular event. We're watching Arnold pummel these other ripped guys while naked ripped guys pose in the background. Man, what crowd were they going for the appeal of that one?
I don't know.
So anyway, double trouble from the Dreamcatcher there. Now, one more we want to go over, and I don't have this one lit up yet, but this one popped up on Indie Retro News, so I think it's worth mentioning. And, Bo, I think you looked into it, you said. Back to the Future Part 3, Timeline of Monkey Island Adventure Fan Demo. What's the scoop on this, boat?
So they've taken the Monkey Island engine and transported Marty McFly and the DeLorean into it. So this is you can actually go and download this right now. You can play a short demo of it, and it seems really cool. You know, the Scum engine is definitely awesome. It's a great platform for adventure titles. And are there any more beloved franchises than Back to the Future and Monkey Island? I mean, those are two of the top. People really go all out for those.
You're right, bud.
So this seems like a really cool thing. Of course, it's not out yet, but we will continue to follow the story.
You can get the demo.
Yeah.
Normally, we don't mention the stuff that isn't out, but this one, at least you can play the demo. I will mention this as we close this news segment. There are, I've read about at least 2 or 3 more games that are supposed to pop before the year's out. And again, we don't normally cover them if they're not out or in some form. But they're coming. So I'd say in the next couple of weeks, the news will grow, Boat.
Yeah, now I have been busy the past couple days putting out some things.
Cranking out video like no man has cranked before.
Yeah, so a couple things that I've put out recently. Oops, I've switched to the wrong scene. Is
behind a curtain.
Today's newest port comparison. I've been doing these port comparison videos.
I knew you were going to get this one going.
This one is quite famous in Amigos lore because when the first time we mentioned Altered Beast, Aaron couldn't say enough good things about the Amiga
I was
version.
incorrect. I had obviously was wrong. I had misplaced. I had forgotten about it.
Now
and it is and your video port comparison really shows light on how god awful it is.
Now you do get some redemption because Altered Beast, even in its arcade form, is not the best game in the world.
It's a fun little diversion. I mean, the kid play it,
but
two players simultaneous.
But it definitely does not shine on the Amiga, the Mega Drive version. This was, of course, the original pack-in for the Mega Drive, and it is much better. So if you're interested,
got better.
if you're interested in seeing how the Amiga version stacks up, you can check that out. I've also done port comparisons with Outrun, the Addams Family. And there's lots more to come.
Has anything surprised you yet? I know Outrun clearly did not, unless you were surprised at how horrible the Amiga version.
I think that the one that was the most surprising was probably Outrun, just because I knew it was bad, but I'd never played it back to back with the Genesis version.
Oh man!
Another thing that I put out, this is not Amiga related, but we had a lot of fun playing the computer cookbook for the ZX Spectrum. This was part of a Spectrum stream that I did as part of our month of giving thanks.
Yes.
This came in from O'Brien's Retro and Vintage. We had a lot of fun cooking some various 80s British classics. And I know that, when you think about great food, the first thing you think of is 80s British food. So this was much more entertaining than I thought it would be. So make sure you check out Fun with the Computer Cookbook for the ZX Spectrum.
Now, is this one of the O'Brien donations?
That's
here?
right.
Because what a wacky one there.
Yeah.
When I saw you put that up, I had to laugh. Yeah, you went crazy with the ZX. You lucky boy. It looks good, too.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like it turned out great.
Yeah. In addition to that, there's been a couple other ZX Spectrum games that I played. Knuckle Busters, and then there's a new C64 game called Spider Maze.
I watched this. What did you think about this one?
Spider Maze is...
It's Pac-Man-y looking.
Yeah, it's very Pac-Man-y looking. I think that there's not a whole lot to it. You collect diamonds. When you run over a light bulb, it makes you invincible. The biggest problem I have with it is that in the documentation and in the title screen and when you die and stuff, it's like the spiders are angry, the spiders hate you. Well, guess what? The spiders don't care. The spiders travel on set paths, and they don't care if you're running around or not. They don't chase you. They basically just do their own thing. So that kind of took away some of the challenge of the game, because basically you just kind of had to wait around until the spiders weren't around, and then you could do your thing. However, this is a new free C64 game in 2018. The music's okay. The graphics are fine. If you're a fan of the platform, you should check it out for sure.
Yeah, it looks pretty sharp.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks pretty good.
Yeah. Aaron, you want to talk about this past week's ARG Presents?
Well, we had a double shot this week to a certain degree. We did a little short yesterday that we just put out. It was a Thanksgiving thing where we talked about what we were thankful for. It's Brent's good idea. So we covered just a couple games in brief. I think it's like a 10-minute segment. And then the big show this week was 1990s arcade games.
Oh.
We covered... I changed my game this week about 20 times. I almost did Time Killers, and I almost did a couple of different fighting games, but I just covered a fighting game, so I thought, well, let's try something different. So I went ahead and played Golden Axe Revenge of Death Adder.
Yeah.
Because it didn't get a home release, and it's such a good game. Mm-hmm. And it's not real well known. And then Brent, in honor of the late, great Stan Lee, covered the arcade version of X-Men, which was a huge hit, and he found all kinds of crazy facts out about it and stuff. That was a lot of fun. Of course, arcade games, we love them, and we actually have owned X-Men. We had an X-Men cabinet briefly, so we had a good time with it. So if you're into that sort of thing, check it out. This week, we're going something way out of bounds. On the next show, we will be covering, and I have zero experience here, but except for maybe playing it a couple of times when I was a kid. We're covering Game & Watch.
Game & Watch.
So we're going to be doing 4 Game & Watch titles.
Oh my gosh.
Since they're so small.
Wow. I can't wait for that because I'm a big Game & Watch fan.
Are you? Well, good. I may have to consult you on some of
I've never actually played any of the Game & Watch games, so you may not, but I like the idea very much of Game & Watch.
I am so old that I have played both the ones I picked. That's why
Did you ever have one of those watches that you could play the game on?
I don't think I ever owned one. I saw them because they had like arcade versions.
Yeah,
of them,
yeah, yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure there's a Frogger or a Zaxxon or something, if you can imagine. But they were cool. But I never, I'm not a big watch guy. I tended to just wreck stuff.
You live life on your own time.
I live life like a raving idiot that just rams his arms and legs into stuff. And, that's why I don't wear chains, because I get caught on stuff, get killed.
That's why I don't wear chains.
Yeah, but man, I'll watch a lot of your comparison stuff, and I thought it was great, very cool, very fun to watch that stuff compared. Yeah, just to toot our own horn, I guess. That was good.
We're awesome.
Yeah.
So, Aaron, it's time to talk about the first of this week's 2 games. Why don't we kick off with Aladdin?
Very good. Now, but have you ever seen this film?
Absolutely.
I've never seen it.
Really?
No, I never. I don't. New Disney, I didn't watch that much. I'm not
Disney?
It was new. It was new to me back then.
25 years old.
I know.
At this point.
I'm not killing it. I'm just saying I didn't see it. So, but I'm of course, as you get older, you catch some of the tunes, and you.
Well, I'll tell you, this one is great because, number one, I dig the setting. The 1001 Nights, the Arabian setting, all that stuff is cool.
Yeah.
Number 2, Robin Williams is great as the genie.
Yeah.
So I don't know where you stand on Robin Williams. You might hate him.
I liked him more then than I mean, it got old for me. I don't hate Robin Williams. Listen, I used to watch Mork and Mindy, so there you go. So Aladdin. Now, we're going to look at a couple. We're going to look at the Amiga version and sort of have a look with its console brethren, all right, on this one. So this came out in the Amiga in '94. This was an AGA-only game, which you can tell by looking at it. Now, the developer of this was, as far as I can tell, the only thing they ever did was called Jaguar. And some places didn't even list them as the developer, but a couple places I saw, so I'm going to go with them.
Do you think when the lights shut down over at Atari, they just had it on
That's
over?
That's what it was. Well, this was '94, so the lights were still on. It's a one-player game, and the Amiga version of this was put out by the guy that coded it, and one of the artists was a guy named John Twitty. He was also did Cool Spot, which we've talked about a few times, never covered. He also did Putty Squad. So the people that worked on this were mostly people that have messed around the Amiga some. Like the guy that did the music was a guy named Andrew Barnabas, and he did the music for, among other things, Swiv, which we liked Swiv, and the music was good. So this game came out on multiple systems. So we're not going to look at every conceivable port, but we'll talk about a couple. But it did come out on the Game Boy and the Game Boy Color. This game really both these games sort of bridged the gap in consoles. This came on a Game Boy, Game Boy Color, NES, and the PC for DOS and Windows. I remember when you used to there's that brief time where you'd have to do both, 2 ports. Remember that? And of course, the Genesis also had a version, and the Genesis version was the premier version. By that I mean it was the original version.
Arguably the best version, also.
Well, we'll talk about that. So, of course, based on the 1992 Disney film, which I had not seen. So, what do you do in this game? Well, you play Aladdin, and it's your basic. I mean, you're another one of these games where it's just like a run around platform game with a sword. What would you compare this to that we've played?
Prince of Persia.
No, it's nothing like Prince of Persia.
You're an idiot. It's so much like Prince of Persia that it's not even funny.
What are you talking about?
You run around with a sword on all these different...
Have you ever played Prince of Persia?
I played
it's slow. It's like 1 or 2 enemies a level.
Right, because it's 10 years older than this game.
No, I didn't get that at all. I didn't think it was anything like Prince of Persia. Now, I will say this. If you want to compare this to a Prince of Persia game, you play the Super Nintendo version. Okay. Which the Capcom released.
Oddly enough, a contemporary of this game.
Yeah. And the game has much more jumping and ledge holding stuff. This has some of that. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, I don't. This is so much faster than Prince of Persia. I didn't see the resemblance, to be honest with you. I mean, yeah, it's set in the same area. You've got a sword, but I mean, it's not gameplay wise. The feeling is totally different to me.
Okay.
You don't think so? Have you played Prince of Persia? The controls are totally different.
It plays like a game that's 10 years older than this game. If they were to make Aladdin 10 years before they made it, 10 years before 1984, if they had made Aladdin in 1987, it would have been exactly like Prince of Persia.
Also, Prince of Persia is like gruesome. It's got no cartooniness to it. it's dank. The dungeon's dank. You
I
never
don't think
go
it's
outside.
that dank. I think it's kind of fresh smelling.
Oh God, you're just being argumentative now. So in this game, what is this cat's name? The prince here. Does he have a first name? I don't even know what his name is.
I don't know. Rachmaninoff?
No, I don't know. You play the prince. You've got your sword, and you can collect apples. Now I'll get to this apple element here in a minute. And you go through. I think it's like let's see. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it's 5 levels. Excuse me. To get to the end.
Is the prince's name Aladdin?
I don't know. I've never seen
he
the film. But you end up fighting. I think it's Jafar.
Because who else would Aladdin be?
I don't know, dude. I've never seen the movie.
I think it is because the prince's name is Aladdin.
So, and at the end, isn't the bad guy Jafar?
Jafar.
Yeah.
Right.
So. And you go through, at the beginning, you start in sort of like a city or a marketplace, you know, and then you go to the desert, you go to a dungeon.
It's very there's all kinds of settings, you know.
Right.
This is not one of those games where the first 8 stages you play are all the market. Every stage you're in a different setting.
You sort of go back to the market like the third stage.
You do, but it changes things up.
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah.
Basically, Aladdin has a sword, and he runs through, and you have a certain amount of health. You go through and you try to beat the bad guys, and the levels are set up in sort of a puzzly way. Not where you're doing puzzles, but you have to go up certain ramps or certain chains or whatever to get to different parts of the level. You know, it's
more agility based puzzles than puzzles.
Yeah, you can jump, you can bounce off like flag poles or whatever, and you can. It's actually nice. It plays well. Now I had the luxury. I played this 2 ways on the Amiga. Of course, I played it on the actual Amiga, and then I played it on the emulated version. And so I got the benefit on the emulated version of having to the 2-button control.
If you play this on I believe that this game is 2-button control out of the box.
Yeah, it is.
CD32
but I mean, the reason I wanted to use it 1 button. So I picked jump for up because I could get both. I wanted to play both ways. And I don't like jump for up.
Surprise! Yeah, this game, there's a lot of games where you can make an argument for up for jump. This is not one of them. This is firmly written in the style of Super Mario Brothers and Sonic the Hedgehog in terms of what they're asking you to do.
Yeah,
and up for jump would be almost impossible.
Now, I thought the game controlled pretty well. I mean, I did get frustrated at first, but it's one of those games you just sort of have to. It's got its own unique. It's not that unique, but it's got its own style. You've got to get used to how like fighting the bad guys is kind of tough because their sword swipes make them a long distance. Some of them are like the guy that juggles the knives always gave me trouble. Of course, this thing also has every once in a while you'll come across one of these platforms that will disintegrate under your weight. One of the things that bothered me the most, and of course it's nothing that's unusual, but when you missed a big jump, you ended up having to go all the way back through a bunch of crap you'd been through.
This is the freaking Lionheart disease, where you have a level
I'm not gonna say that,
you have a level that's vertically oriented, and if you screw up, then you are hampered in your progress.
That was around a long time before Lionheart came out. That's a Wizards and Warriors and all those other games did that too. But I will say what they got right in this: the graphics in this are top shelf. They're cartoony. They look very cartoony, don't they? He moves great. Smoothness. I think everything scrolls around nicely. And the bad guys are cartoony. Again, I had trouble actually getting the bad guys and without getting hurt a lot. Because you could take some shots. The sounds okay. I will say this: the very opening of this, I just let it run, and it's playing that Whole New World song, and then it just slowly eases into singing.
Right.
And it was beautiful, man.
Very surprised when I heard that.
I was like, oh, and that no version, the other version I heard did that, and it sounded. I was like, wow, that is nice.
Yeah, very good.
So that was nice, and. Overall, it wasn't too frustrating. I mean, I managed to get to the dungeons, which is, I figure, it's pretty good, I mean, I had to give it a shot a while. Now, what were your thoughts on this one, Boat?
This game is great. I am more inclined to like this sort of game. I like platforming games. It looks amazing. At the beginning of the game, they give you a screen that says, this is what you're trying to collect and this is what these things do.
Yeah.
It's different than so many other games that we cover on this show where it's like, here's a buttload of things to collect that don't really do anything. And some of them do stuff, but we're not going to tell you what they do. This game was very good about, that. It also, it's challenging, but it's not, it's not impossible by any stretch. The only problems that I had were figuring out exactly where the platforms began and ended. Sometimes the backgrounds and the foreground is drawn so beautifully that sometimes you don't know what's what.
And they've got almost like a pseudo depth to some parts where you run in front of something and then when you come back across, you're on it.
Exactly. They do a lot of the stairs that way.
Yeah, we covered something recently in the Amiga that did something very similar. I can't remember what it was, but you have to come out from where you're at, and then you've moved up in depth, and then you could jump on the other thing. Right. So that did it was kind of odd.
I liked the stage design. I liked how they took you to many different places. Almost all of the different scenarios. I didn't get very far in this game because it did get too challenging for me. But I felt like with practice I could have gotten good at it. I didn't feel like it was impossible. But watching the playthroughs on YouTube, it really takes you through every major scene in the movie. I know you haven't seen the movie, but trust me, it does. The genie plays a big part in this game. There's bonus stages that are the genie. The genie's all over the place, morphing himself into different things. Exactly like the movie. I mean, this game,
it's got like a almost like a slot machine level thing at the end.
This game probably captures the feeling of the movie better than any other licensed game that I've played. Maybe the Addams Family does just as good of a job, but the Addams Family doesn't look nearly as good as this. I mean, this looks, if you were a kid and you saw this game running in a store, you would think it looked like the cartoon.
Yeah, it looked nice, I have to say. And it uses the AGA. I mean, everything looks good. I mean, I don't think it looks like you're missing anything until you play other versions where you'll see that stuff missing. But overall, I liked it. Now, let's talk about the apples. The apple throwing. It's funny. I went through this game and I'm collecting apples and didn't know there was even an apple throwing element until I went and looked at the docks. And I'm like, oh, snap, look at that. And so that helps you on some of these enemies that are a little bit more tough to get through. And also the apples are used to guide you to where you need to go, which I always like that when they use collectibles.
Right.
This is the opposite of like Zool.
Right. Absolutely.
They just have them everywhere.
Absolutely.
It's things that helps you know where to go by putting the apples out there. So you're like, okay, I'm on the right track.
Yeah, the level design is great. It's not an ideal solution to use the space bar to switch between the apples and the sword, but I mean, that's what you've got to do. It would have been great if they would have written that into the CD32 controller, if you were playing with CD32 controller.
Yes, that's what I wanted to mention. When you throw the apples, you've got two ways to do it. You can hit the space bar on the Amiga and it'll turn you from sword to apple. Or you can pull down and hit the button, and you'll throw apples.
Yeah, I had a hard time getting that to work all the time.
Right. What I ended up doing was just I wasted a lot of apples. I got real far in this game without using apple one. So it
does help with the enemies that are throwing the swords.
Right.
And things like
I got through several bosses. I did pretty good at this. I was surprised that this is one of those games where I'd had a cup of coffee with it on the Genesis, but I really hadn't got into the Amiga version that much, and I was not necessarily looking forward to this one, but it had a rep. It ended up being pretty fun.
Yeah.
So I think the Amiga version is pretty solid.
Now, we should probably talk a little bit about the Amiga version versus the Genesis version.
Sure. And there are actually quite a few differences. They actually sort of play pretty similar, don't they? A lot of the flourishes are not in the Amiga version that are in the Genesis version. But there's some things that aren't in it that I actually prefer on the Amiga. For example, in the Genesis version, your life bar it's a lamp with smoke coming out of it, right? On the Amiga version, you've got the genie looking at this. There's like a bar at the top that has a score and stuff. And the genie's looking at an hourglass.
Right.
And the hourglass is your energy. And his expression changes the more hurt you get.
It's like James Pond in that way.
I like that, actually. I like that. I like that better. I prefer normally I don't prefer having screen taken up for something, but this screen is taken up for good stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, they could have done it like the Genesis and just made that top bar see through. I would have been okay with that, but I mean, I actually kind of I don't have a problem with that. What did you think about that?
Well, they've done this on the Amiga version because they couldn't show the expansive screen that they do on the Genesis
that's what
version.
it was.
What I read on Lemon, and this is from a random reviewer on Lemon, so take this with a grain of salt, that this was actually Virgin's engine that they used for Cool Spot, which was an ECS OCS game.
That doesn't surprise me.
And so, if they would have gone all out with all of the tools in the AGA toolbox, they could have made a version that was just like the Genesis version. However, they decided not to go that route and just use the AGA for the extra colors.
Did you find that it affected you as you played? The lack of screen?
Well, I didn't play too much of the Genesis version, so I didn't really know what I was missing.
Right. Well, I played them both, and I can tell you, it didn't affect me game wise. Like I said, I don't know, maybe I'm dopey, but it amused me to watch the genie's expression, because at the end he's like, oh!
Right. I do think that's a nice touch, and it makes me, I wish that they would have included that in the Genesis version. I agree with you. I think it's a better way to display your life, for sure.
Something else, of course, you've got more parallax and more defined backgrounds, and it's a sort of like the Addams Family curse.
Yeah.
The backgrounds, don't get the Amiga versions aren't as sparse as Addams Family. I mean, you can see
they exist,
yeah, there's something going on back there, but the Genesis version, it has more stuff going on.
Yeah, and I mean, we're watching this desert level now on the screen, and you can see it's like a Shadow of the Beast style gradient of color on the back, and the Amiga version just has the one color in the sky.
I think the Amiga version had better I like the music better than the Genesis version. I was something else when you die on the Amiga version, your guy just kind of tips over and you can see it's the same animation, but on the Genesis version, the genie's there and it looks like a corner man in a boxing match.
Right.
He's trying to help you out. He's working on your back.
Yeah, it's much better. It's much better.
And so there's a little more, again, it's a little flourish there. There's some transitional bits where in the game where they'll show like a scarab or something with some glowing effects that are not in the Amiga version. There's an interesting, and actually it comes up here. There's some interesting work with foreground elements in that dungeon level. I thought it was kind of neat. It works.
Yeah.
I mean, it's well thought out and well done. The guys that put this together knew what they were doing for sure. I mean, it's very beautiful.
It is, and
that's stuff you didn't have to put in. But I mean, it's nice, and I mean, really, these games
adds to the cinematic quality.
Sure, these games are very. They're very similar in most ways. I mean, if you're going to give the nod to one in terms of graphics, and also the fact, of course, with the Genesis controller, you've got all the buttons for all your stuff.
Yeah, I think that most people would say that the graphics are better on the Mega Drive version. The Mega Drive version plays faster, but
it's very close.
Version, it's very close, and the Amiga version sings to you at the beginning.
And I mean, yeah. I mean, this is one, if you picked up the Amiga version, you're not going to be like looking at the other game picture on the back and being like, oh.
Right. You're not going to be disappointed.
You're not going to really tell much of a difference.
Yeah.
Really, the biggest difference is that bar at the top, and the bar is not bad. I like the bar. Overall, I really enjoyed the game. I was surprised.
Yeah,
I got further than I thought I would. This is another one that I always hear about. So I'm glad I got to actually sit down with it and play it for a while, because I enjoyed it quite a bit. I also looked at the Super Nintendo versions. I don't know if you worked. Have you ever played the Super Nintendo version of this?
No.
Just for fun, I looked at it. Now, the Super Nintendo version is actually not a version. It's a whole other game.
Really?
It's a game from Capcom. Now, and this game is, you were talking about a Prince of Persia sort of affair. This game is actually... I think it's more it's more along the lines of something like that in terms of it's more leapy. It's not, the graphics aren't as good. This is regarded as not as good a version.
Yeah. I mean, you can tell just by looking at it that it doesn't look like the cartoon anymore.
Well, it doesn't. And this version is not well regarded, to be honest with you. But it's okay. I played it. And there are similarities. It's not like it's completely different, but it's not the same. But this has more. See the elements of him pulling himself up. So this from. I can sort of see, even this is not that much like Prince of Persia. But one thing I wish, it's funny you mentioned Lionheart, and you mentioned it in a very derogatory way. But if you could have taken this character, right, with his abilities with the sword, and maybe throwing that Apple type projectile element into the Lionheart engine, then you really got something.
That's very true.
This comes, I mean, the Lionheart, the backgrounds, the levels, they were all gold. The actual characters where you had your struggles come in, you get a guy like this, you could stick this guy in there, you're in business.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So, excuse me.
How did this one review?
It reviewed, well, I mean, you can imagine, it reviewed really well. So, it's funny, anytime you have a real popular game, you see everyone comes out of the woodwork to review it. Lemon gives this one a 7.91, which is pretty good.
I'm surprised that it's that low, to be honest with you. I figured this would be an above an 8.
Well, I think maybe there's some people reviewed it a little bit lower just based on the fact that the Genesis version has a slight edge, but you never know. Amiga Action gave it a 92%. Amiga Computing 85. That seems low. Amiga Format a 90. Amiga Magazine gave it an 8.5 out of 10. Here's a new one, Bo. Amiga Point of View. I don't think
Amiga Point of View.
They give it an 81%. Amiga Power 88%. And CU Amiga gave it 90%. So not too bad. I mean, it's right in that ballpark. I would say this is I would say this is an A title to me.
Me too.
You know, it's not. I don't think it's the longest game. You know, maybe some people took.
I don't know. It takes over an hour to complete.
Yeah, but it's But I mean, I'm trying to think what people would deduct points for.
I think people. There's always going to be a contingent of people that think, oh, Disney.
Well, this also came out a year after the Genesis port, the Genesis version, and so. I don't know if people might have held that against it. You never know. The Amiga and DOS ports of the game came out in 94, and the Genesis came out in November 93. So it's not like it was that long either. I eBayed the heck out of this thing. In the UK, you can get this thing all day long, $50, $38, and then I found one in Germany for 23 US bucks. So if you're looking for a copy of this, wouldn't be the worst thing. The box looks pretty nice too.
Right.
You know, Disney was really hitting its stride about that era, right? Aladdin was one of the big kickoffs to that big. I mean, they had Lion King.
You know, the
Little Mermaid.
General consensus is that the Disney revival started in '89 with the Little Mermaid, and they had a run, probably about a 10-year run where everything was just blockbuster gold, because that was Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, Aladdin. Just they had no duds, and that was coming after a decade where you had stuff like The Fox and the Hound and stuff that just did not perform well in the box office.
It's funny because I was thinking, I remember going to the drive-in with my folks to see The Rescuers. Remember The Rescuers?
That was also
Bob
in that
Newhart.
dark period. Yeah.
What do you mean? It was a huge hit.
It was not a huge hit.
It was. I've
not,
researched it.
It was not compared to The Little Mermaid, The Lion King.
In its time, it was a big
all relative.
hit. That's why they got the sequel, but
the sequel sucked too.
Well, I didn't see the sequel.
The first one was great.
saw the sequel. What am I saying? It was okay.
The Rescuers Down Under.
The first one was better.
Yeah.
But the next thing I saw in a theater from Disney, Why Are You Killing? That's a good flick.
It was, but it just didn't.
It did well in the theater.
It didn't do the numbers that these films did.
They were a new era because Disney cracked the code too. That's a whole different story. We could get into this some other time. But the next movie I saw, I was thinking, oh, that's the last Disney movie I saw. You know what I saw? I don't know why. The girl I was with wanted to see it. Mulan. I did go and see that. It was okay.
Yeah, that was 98,
That had Eddie
99.
Murphy as the little dragon.
I remember that my car broke down on the way to see that movie.
Really?
Yeah.
My car broke down when I was going to see Batman Mask of the Phantasm.
Did you fix your radiator with duct tape?
No, I hiked.
That's what I did.
I hiked in foot-deep snow off the interstate to a house and used the phone.
My car broke down in the parking lot of the mall, and I walked over to the hill to Lowe's to get some duct tape and radiator fluid.
How'd that work out?
Well, my buddy that was holding the patch in the gap got radiator fluid in his eye. I laughed. It was kind of funny.
Did it kill him or hurt him?
He was all right.
Oh, okay, good.
He joined the Army soon after.
So it's a happy tale.
It was a happy tale.
You drove a guy to the Army.
That's right.
Nice job, Boat. So, shall we move along?
Let's move
after
along.
that riveting conversation. Now, this game here, I had a little more experience with because my brother liked to play it.
Now, before we get into the game, let me ask you: were you a Micro Machines buyer as a youth?
I did. Did I have some Micro Machines? Yes, and probably some of the knockoff competitors.
Because the two big brands of small vehicle, of course, were Hot Wheels and Micro Machines.
Right. Well, there's another brand there. Who's the other guys that make the little cars? Matchbox.
Ertl makes them just like the real thing.
I don't know what that is.
Only smaller.
I don't know what that is. I don't know.
They made tractors and stuff.
And I also remember the Bigfoots, the little battery operated trucks. I like those too because they actually moved. But Micro Machines, I was always puzzled as their popularity as a kid.
I think it was because they were so much smaller, and they came in unlike Hot Wheels, which you basically had the cars and then you had the tracks.
Yeah.
Micro Machines came with these whole dioramas, like Superman City.
You're right, but they were incredibly small.
They were.
You could lose them. You could step on them. And they were incredibly small. What could you do with them? A Hot Wheels car, you could take the car and go bzzz, and zoom it down a track in a loop.
Yeah.
You ain't zooming the Micro Machines down jack squat.
No, they were very light.
You go bzzz, and they go bing, and they fly off the. It's like flipping a thimble.
That's very true.
So I never got into, but I mean, everyone had them. It's like baseball cards. Even if you don't like them, you got a couple Star Wars cards or something. So along comes this game, Micro Machines, the game. Now this one came out in '93, and of course this is a Codemasters joint, Codemasters boat. And this of course came out on a bunch of the systems, very similar to Aladdin. Actually, the guys that the game selection committee knew their stuff. They picked two games that were sort of contemporary and very similar. Excuse me. They came out on the NES. Super Nintendo, DOS. Now this one I didn't know about, but the Philips CDI got a port of this. Did you know that?
No.
Probably the greatest game ever.
Did you play it?
I don't have a CDI. I'd like to get one. It came out in the Game Gear as well, Boatster, and of course the Genesis / Mega Drive. So, Micro Machines. What is it? It's pretty simple, actually. It's as simple as it gets. You are tasked with racing 1 to 4. It's either one other guy or 3 other guys in a race with a Micro Machine. Now there are varying Micro Machines. I can tell you the ones I saw, and there may be more. But you've got all sorts of little cars. Plus you've got little boats. You've got helicopters. You've got tanks. I didn't even know there were tanks until was playing for this thing.
I think that they made a whole line of Micro Machines, but I think the cars were the only ones that were really popular.
Well, I mean, I know they did. I'm talking about in the game, though. I didn't know there were tanks, that shootable tanks. So I thought that was a surprise to me when I got to that level. So, of course, they're Micro Machines. So the levels are based on sort of like mundane, everyday areas. For example, you race boats in a bathtub. You race.
You're at the breakfast table with the 4x4s.
Right. You also go out and on almost like a picnic table. There's a billiard table you race on.
Kind of reminds me of that game. What was that game that we played that was on the pool table?
It was that one to robots.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember. Actually, that was a good game. I can't remember what it was. It had a real wacky name. And in this game, there's a couple ways to play this game. And this is something it's funny. Over the years, you don't get stuff. And this was, I didn't get it, now I got it. So, first of all, when you start the game, you can pick 1 or 2 players, okay? When you pick 1 player, which is what I did, you then get the choice of playing 2 different types of game. There's head-to-head, and then there's like a race. And so, when you play a race, it's you and 3 other people that are computer people, and then you race around the track.
Right.
And you try to win. It's just a standard race. And then if you win, you advance. It's that simple. And you have to qualify for the race, and then qualification is irrelevant. The head-to-head version is much different. And I have to say, this may be something that you see all the time, and maybe I'm just an idiot, but I don't think I've ever seen this sort of race done before, and I liked it. And it's a race where you're head-to-head, and you get a series of lights at the bottom of the screen. And as you race, if your opponent screws up and gets off the screen, your light gets lit up. You get one of his lights.
Okay. So this is where the veil is unraveled, because you did not look at the long play of the Amiga version.
No, I played
the Amiga version doesn't have that.
It does have it.
We're looking at it right now. This is the head-to-head.
No, this isn't the head-to-head. This isn't the head-to-head. I just 4 players.
I just watched.
Dude, I played it.
I just watched the thumb go to head-to-head.
Dude, I'm telling you, This is the way it works.
Okay.
All right. And so as you lap this is not the head-to-head. This is the 4-player. As you go ahead.
I see what you're talking
As
about.
you go ahead of your opponent. Now what do you say?
You're right.
Okay, thank you.
I'll edit this out later.
Yes,
no one will
good
ever
move. See it. So as you knock your opponent off the board, your lights get up, and when you light up all the lights, he has none left.
Right.
He's out.
So what they were doing here is, instead of and they did this ostensibly for playing with 2 players, although the same thing happens when you're playing against the computer, is that you can't have in a single screen 2-player game 1 person on the screen and 1 person off the screen.
That's right.
It's funny that you mentioned, has there ever been another game that did that? I think most of the time when you go off the screen, your character will just appear on the screen. You've got 2 different times. You'll get a time bonus or something like that. I thought the way they did this was really cool.
Well, I was thinking, me and the kid play a lot of San Francisco Rush, and often you'll explode or something will happen. It would have been awesome if this was somehow implemented into that, because does it slow the game down? Yes, but it works perfectly for this. I enjoyed this game. I never understood what the hell was going on in that. I enjoyed the game 1,000% more because of that. Because one thing it allows you to do is, in Micro Machines, okay, let's say you're in a boat. You're driving around a bathtub. Sometimes you might get hung up with some bubbles, and the computer juts off and leaves you behind, and bam, he gets a point, okay? But what you can do is you can sort of cheat the system. If you find a big straightaway, you can just haul as much butt as you can up the straightaway and not even bother making the turn.
Yeah.
All you're doing is making sure he's trying to make the turn. He's off the screen.
You're playing it a different way for sure.
And it's so, because I needed the edge. I wasn't good enough to get, like, when I play the computer in the second level, and the breakfast table I hate the most. I don't know why, it's my hardest level for all these. And I suck at it. And normally, back in the day, I would swear I would just give up and be like, this game's crap. You got to get past it, then you move on. But the other levels, like, I was pretty good at a lot of the levels, just because of the way the track was set up, you could use that exploit and cheat. Another thing, on the tank level, with the tank levels, I almost sort of flawed, because I just let the computer get ahead of me slightly and just shoot him and just take off, and you win like that. So I crushed.
Now, let me ask you a question. Did you use any sort of level select or anything to get these higher levels? Because
I did.
My biggest problem with this game is that level 3, there is so much of a spike between level 2 and level 2, I could win every single time. Level 3, I didn't have a chance.
Level 2, I thought was the hardest one.
Really? Okay.
I hate that. Anything with the cereal, I had trouble with.
This level that we're watching right now, I must have played it 50 times trying to even place.
The nuts and bolts level, is the hardest levels for me are the ones where you can fall off the table, which is this one. But the hardest level for me was far and away was the desert ones, where you have the sand. Those are tough too.
See, I will probably put up another. I didn't realize there was a level select code in this game.
Yeah, and the Amiga version, my version was built in.
Oh, okay.
You hit enter and you go to the next level.
Oh, that's great, because
so I went through 20 levels of this and played them a lot.
There are no long plays of the Amiga version.
Yeah.
And my theory was that third level is just so hard that no one could get by it. At first I was going to use the World of Long Plays Mega Drive version, but then I just recorded some footage that we're using on this show. But it's great to know that there is a level select available.
Yeah. And it works perfectly.
Speaking of the Mega Drive version, I did do a port comparison of this. These games also compare fairly well together. The design of the title screen and everything is similar. The Mega Drive sort of has an edge because it's got a black background instead of the kind of funky looking purple background, I think. But other than that,
I like the purple better.
You like the purple?
Yeah,
okay.
I did. Because at least they put some effort into the colors as opposed to that.
The gameplay itself is pretty identical. However, they have totally rebalanced the game and made it easier.
Wait. Which version did you think was easier?
The Mega Drive.
Yes,
the Mega
absolutely.
Drive version.
I agree with that 100%.
They've implemented rubber banding, which allows the computer to not get too far ahead of you when you're playing really the 4-on-4 mode.
Yeah.
And I could make significant progress in the Mega Drive.
The Mega Drive version. I'm glad I was afraid you were going to go the other way. We're going to have a big throwdown because yes. After playing the Amiga version, the Mega Drive version was much simpler.
Yeah.
Now, did it control better? No. Did it look better. Not really. It didn't. It sure as heck didn't sound better. The Amiga version sounds way better.
I agree.
The Mega Drive engine sounds are just no good.
Yeah.
But everything else is virtually identical. I will say I liked how the Amiga implemented. If you're watching the video here, you can see it at the bottom of the screen. It's a lot like the last game. At the bottom of the screen, you've got laps to complete, and you've got the dots of how many dots you've won. On the Mega Drive version, it's on the side. I don't like it on the side. I like it, again, I know it makes it look better, but I like to clearly be able to see the dots and the amount of laps as opposed to the Genesis version where they just have the number.
I agree 100%.
I know this is sort of
100%.
anal of us, but I mean, I like it better. I like it so I can see it and see what's going on. The Amiga version sounded better, and they looked, I mean, there's probably, the Genesis might have a slight edge in the way it looks. They played, I mean, again, this is a game that plays quite well. Now, I did not get to the tank level on the Mega Drive, so I'm assuming you use a button to fire. But on the Amiga version, you just hit up and or down. I can't remember, but you hit one direct, and it works. It doesn't affect your driving in any way because you're driving with the button for engine. Perfect. Now, there are some things I wish they did differently. When the level starts, it doesn't give you any notice at all. You just go. The Amiga version, like the Genesis version, that comes up and the cars will flash for a few seconds. So if you're not paying attention, like I remember I was playing one level and I reached up to scratch my neck when the game started.
It's over.
Bam, I'd already lost the light.
Right,
that
right.
quick. When you've got 4 players in this, it runs just fine. I mean, there was no slide. And this game graphically is fine. It does what it's supposed to do.
I love games that make you tiny and have everyday objects huge. That's just one of my favorite things in the world. So like this ticks all my buttons. Especially playing the Mega Drive version where I could actually be successful with it. I would love it if somebody would patch this game and do the rebalancing, because in every other respect the Amiga version is superior.
Well, one of my biggest problems with these games and this game in particular, is the fact that you get so little forward view to see what's coming, which I guess maybe that's the key to the game. And I never got it. I just never liked not having enough notice to see which way I'm going to be turning. However, playing it's one thing about this show. It's games that I could not stand. I've grown to at least tolerate. And this is one of them. And I think most of when I played this was on the NES, which I didn't look at the NES version of this.
The NES version looks very much worse. I mean, it looks like an 8-bit game versus 16-bit game.
The control was tight. This game, it's like if you were going to make a game that the Amiga could do, this is it. It's perfect for the Amiga. I like the fact that you get multiple vehicles. I mean, they make a difference. They're quicker.
There's another game that's like this that was on the NES. It's one of Brent's favorites. Do you know what it is? Cobra Triangle.
Oh yeah, the boat. It's a boat game.
Boat and car.
Yeah, I remember
and motorcycle.
Something else I thought was cute when you play the you versus 3 other people levels is when you win a race, you get a micro machine and you got a big case.
I like that a lot.
And it puts it in the case, so you're collecting all the micro.
Yeah.
That's a good ad thing too, right? So I know this game. Was it this game for the Genesis that they had a cartridge that had built-in joystick ports for 4-player? I think it was.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's crazy.
And so if they had the joystick ports built into the cartridge.
That's insane.
I'm pretty sure it was this one. But in terms of the way they play, again, much like it's very similar to Aladdin. That's why I said the guys that picked these games, they must have had an idea, because they're both better looking on the console, but they both don't sound as well on the console, and they both play about the same. So what do we proved? Well, the Amiga can, when given the opportunity, can sort of compete with some of these consoles, especially in the 2D realm, and probably really could do better. I mean, you could have made these games look better, but I mean, something like Micro Machines, it looks like it should. I don't think there's any reason to go crazy, on it. As you would imagine, this also reviewed fairly well. Lemon gives it a 7.9, so pretty much, again, like the last game. Amiga Action gave it an 83. Amiga Computing gave it an 80. I think 80 is real low. I think Amiga Force gave it an 89. Amiga Format a 90. Amiga Point of View, they're back, 93. Amiga Power 88, and the One gave it an 89. On eBay, I found this. If you want just the disc, $9. I saw a guy selling the box copy for $9.25, and I saw $18. These are all in the UK. Nothing for us. And then I found one in Austria, of all places, for $23. Not too bad. But when I looked at what we were coming up with this week, I was like, I don't know. But actually, it was refreshing. And once again, and we've both killed the Amiga on these platform games, and over the years, we're both guilty of it. But these are two. I mean, this platform game, Aladdin, is a quality platform.
Yeah.
And shouldn't be overlooked in the pantheon of good platformers. There's not a darn thing wrong with it. It plays well and it looks nice.
Mm-hmm.
And Micro Machines, it's a different sort of racing game. But I mean, if you're into that sort of that look,
I mean, if you want a top-down racing game, I would say play Supercars first. But if you want one that's got a little bit more charisma, Micro Machines.
This is great for little kids. Yeah. Although the Amiga version, that's the one thing you're going to have is that it's a more challenging version.
Absolutely,
there's no doubt about that.
All right, Aaron, just a little plug to all of our listeners. If you'd like to support the show, one of the best things that you can do is write us an iTunes review. If you have not yet, you can do it easily from the web or from inside iTunes itself. That is a thing that really helps boost our popularity. If we can be the first hit on Amiga podcast, that would be huge, especially since there's a lot of like Spanish-speaking podcasts also called the Amigos. So we want to
never going to let that go. Are you?
We want to be the number one hit, I guess, for Amiga computer podcast. Last week, Aaron, the Patreon song. We had a lot of winners. Last week's song was California Girls by the Beach Boys. I like to consider myself to have the same vocal chops as Brian Wilson. Really, all the Beach Boys combined. I sort of channel all of them in different ways. And so
I'm not going to say anything about that.
Our winners were Paul Harrington, Paul Kitching, Paul McCartney, Colin 419, Eric Nelson, and Andrea Hucker. Hucker again.
Huck's wife got.
She's got the eagle ears, man. I'm telling you. This week, if you know this song, I also want to welcome, we got a new Patreon supporter last week, Tim Drew. Have you ever heard of The Future Was 8-Bit before?
I have.
Maker of peripherals?
Yeah.
Well, he's behind that operation.
No kidding.
He runs that show.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome, man.
He's a C64.
We've referenced them in the past.
Yeah, he's a C64 programmer. He developed this device that allows you to run SD cards from a Spectrum. Check this thing out, man. Listen to this.
I like to have that.
It's an adapter that fits into that port in the back.
Yeah.
It gives you joystick ports and an SD card slot.
Wow.
Isn't that awesome?
Man, we have to look into that.
Yeah.
We've got the spec.
We've got the spec. Yeah. So welcome, Tim. If you know this week's Patreon song, you can send me a message at john@amigospodcast.com with your guess, and I will be happy to read all the correct answers on the air. So here we go.
This is the calm before the storm. You know it's coming.
Tim Drew, Daniel Williams, Robert Edgerton III, Simon Rose, Joseph Harrison, Kyle Etter, Rob O'Hara, Howard Nims, Matthew Laramore, Andy Craig, Shanzo, Darren Lomax, Colin 419, Bark Bid, Roland Burke, Andrew Monk, Joe the Zombie, John the Cook, Dan Ross, Leaf, Killan, Alan Kebab, Chicote, Level, John Marshall, Matthew Perron, Ricky DeRocher, Creepy Dead Boy, Figgy CTZ, The Slow Norris, Stephenson, Sorgard, Mortensen, Edvin Helen, Hadblindo 75, Christopher Essel, Ravi Abbott, Chris Folds, Dreamcatcher, Lauren Giroux, Graham Vebke, Brent Dowdy, Lane Denson, Adam Battersby, O'Brien Return Vintage, Gary Hucker, C. Brian Jones, Paul Harrington, Duncan Stiles, Alan Kebab, Anthony Jarvis, Tapes from the Crypt, Josh Nat, Adam Bradley, Jonas Rulo, THT, Kim Tommy, Humbert, Stad, Daniel Winston, Brutal Barracuda, Darren Coles, Jason Warrens, Pixels at Dawn, and Kjolbjorn Barman.
Beautiful, man.
Thank you. So
come inside for some hot cocoa.
We're going a little bit higher class this week.
Is that what we are?
Normal fare.
Well,
normal fare. You got to elevate your viewing habits to guess that one.
Yeah. I got nothing to say.
Next week, Aaron, we're gonna take a turn back into a genre that I know that you like a lot. the role-playing genre. The first-person role-playing genre.
Okay.
I am the beholder type deal.
Oh,
this is a
had me for a
game.
second, yeah.
This is a game called Black Crypt.
Oh yes.
Black
This is what I've tantalizingly close to wanting to try out. So that'll be fun. I'm looking forward to that one.
Absolutely.
Black Crypt. Yes.
And we recorded early this week, but next week we should be back at the normal time. And next week, if all goes to plan, we will be joined by 2 very special guests. We'll be joined by the one and only Ravi Abbott from the Retro Hour. He's making the trip to Atlanta.
Our favorite DJ.
Yep, and he'll be joined by Adam, and I'm not even going to say Adam's last name because I always get Adam Bradley, Adam Battersby, and I think there's even one more that might even be this Adam. They all run together. But Adam from Vintage Computer Festival Southeast in the ATL, he'll also be making the trip up to West Virginia.
Sweet.
And so we're going to have a 4-man team on Amigos next week talking about Black Crypt. Should be fun. We're going to do some special stuff. Make sure you tune in live. It'll be Friday around 5:30 Eastern Time. I do want to thank those of you we had a different crowd in the chat room this morning since we're recording in the AM. We got Sean Pascutini.
I love it.
Yeah.
Pascutini.
Absolutely. We got to the Flack. Flack is in the chat with us today. Rob O'Hara. Amiga Bong all the way from South Korea. Zutari82 is here. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with us in the YouTube chat. Everybody, you're always welcome. Make sure you hit that bell beside the subscribe button.
Matthew Perrone.
Yeah, Matthew Perrone is here. Paul Harrington, he's listening at work. They're all coming out of the woodwork.
We're bringing down efficiency left and right.
So make sure you hit that bell that's next to the subscribe button on YouTube to be notified whenever we go on the air.
Before we go, we should mention and thank everyone we have surpassed the 1,200 mark on YouTube.
Absolutely, that's right.
Who'd have thunk it?
Right.
I never would have thunk that.
All right, guys, we will see you all next week for Black Crypt.
Which one? Blah.
Blah.
I want to suck your blood. You're a month late, pal.
Who used to say that?
Every vampire ever.
Oh, that guy, huh? All right, guys, we'll see you next week. Until then,
Adios.